But I was turned on to this earlier.
What's the buffering about now?
In the side chat, and finally, Brett's. I don't think it's the first time. There's been sporadic moments of this, but a thing here, just a little late to the party. Just a little late to the party. I'm gonna put it that way. I do remember all those conversations where I tried to tell you, Brett, what Matt had said and what Matt believes and all those things. So, but kudos to you for the video you put out earlier, and we're gonna start with that because I don't really cover Matt Powell's videos. I don't really watch his channel at all. And like I was over on his channel the other day, and I noticed like some of his new videos. I haven't watched any of his new videos. But like the titles of them are like, yeah, I should probably still be covering this douchebag. But I try to stay away from Cupcake. I try to stay away from Cupcake and watching them. I try to stay away from just the drama of YouTube vendettas. Now, I'm not saying I will for, but Smokey Saint, and that whole ordeal put me through the ringer. So I don't channel. What's going on? I think I remember you. I think I've talked to you before. Puff, what's going on? Brett, like I said, Brett Keene is here. Satan's Little Helper's here. Sandy, Marty Camejo. Ziamara's here. What's going on, Ziamara? Been away for 2 months. Yeah, I've been taking intervals and breaks and shit myself. Hillary's emails is here. What's going on? Parole or time served? Yeah, that's a good question. Erica Hubner. We'll be watching your friend Praise Erica get circles ran around him, and it's beautiful. Oh God, I enjoyed it so much. I've watched it twice. I watched it the day after it happened, and then I watched it again today because I've been planning on showing it ever since I saw it because it's great. It was great. I'm gonna show a half an hour of it. I only watched a half an hour of it. So this should be entertaining, I think. We're gonna start with the kind of serious shit first, and then we'll get into the like true dumpster fire. We're gonna start with do I still have it? I don't have it on this screen. We're going to start with this first Brett Keane video. We'll get over here. And I know I have it over here. Where's it at? Yeah, there we go. We're going to start with a Christian cat fight. All right. So this is a video that Brett Keane put out, and I think Brett Keane is going to do a pretty good job of showing just Matt Powell's bigotry. You know, we've all had our day with that. But Brett's also going to kind of show some private conversations. It sounds like maybe a private phone message, maybe some private exchanges. So we're gonna listen to what Brett has to say. It might take a second. Oh yeah, it's quiet at first. We should read that, I think, because that's like a common exchange. Matt Powell official says, Brett, every single year you go through this. It's just a cycle that I've seen several times. And you know something, it's destroying your testimony. By being so unstable when it comes to your views, you actually incriminate and harm your reputation. You're better than that, Brett. Quit throwing a pity party and get yourself together. Quit putting your faith in man. Christ is the only one who won't ever let you down. Now, you know, I've had several, interactions with Matt Powell, face-to-face interactions. He's even like on my Facebook now. It's super weird because he'll like post and it'll say right there, like, Matt Powell liked your post. And it's like, ugh. Like, why did I ever accept that one? But I've known him for quite a while. I've met him for quite a while. I think the extent of our relationship now is about 4.5 years. And nothing he really does kind of surprises me at this point. He tries to put on this, I don't know, all-American white boy image. It's really the only way I can try to describe it. Rosy cheeks, kind of sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, American white boy. But he holds some of the worst views, and he holds the views because the Bible says what the Bible says, right? And like I said, I try to tell Brett this for a very long time, and in fact, it led to several rages of mine against Brett Keane. Was the fact that Brett Keane seemed to kind of ignore it or play dumb when it came to that. So, but I think that there has been moments when Brett Keane kind of called Matt Powell out for that, tried to separate himself from that, even over the course of the years. Like even moments like when I would bring it up to Brett Keane would try to separate, definitely say that it's wrong, things like that. So yeah, we'll watch this video here. He tries to embody mayonnaise. Brett is maltheist. I know, but he does fit within like my definition of what a Christian is. So Christian catfight's accurate for me. Because I have a very broad definition of a Christian. If you believe in Jesus Christ, if you believe he was resurrected, then you're a Christian. I put Richard right in there. Even though Richard thinks it's going to happen in the future. So this is just kind of showing like other people kind of backing up the things that Matt says, and they're not wrong. God said to execute homosexuals. God doesn't change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Brett Keane replies, Old Testament says adultery is worthy of capital offense. Sounds like you have a lot of Christians you need to deal with, including Kent Hovind. Now, that's actually an issue that Kent Hovind and Steven Anderson has had since Kent Hovind got divorced from his first wife. The fact I speculate because there's no way that I can know this. But I know like Matt Powell had moved to Arizona and was working with Steven Anderson. And I don't know. I think that Steven Anderson Kent Hovind rift I speculate that it became an issue between Matt Powell and Steven Anderson because Matt Powell essentially left Arizona, met his wife, got married in Arizona, came back to Michigan for like a really short stint, and then started going and working for Kent Hovind. And that's always been a point of contention between Steven Anderson and his NIFB and Kent Hovind ever since Kent Hovind and his first wife divorced, for sure. Kent Hovind gets a lot of that criticism from the NIFB. And it's interesting to me because if my assumptions are correct, then Matt Powell essentially chose his childhood hero, Kent Hovind, over the NIFB, which is the religious philosophy that he had adopted. It is going to start having noise.
Hey, Brett. It's Matt. Wanted to give you a call. I saw your latest quote-unquote video response to me and Kent Hovind. I do want to go on record and say that, yes, the Bible does put a death penalty on a man that would have sex with another man, for example. Because if a man would have sex with another man, he would have sex with an animal, he would have sex with a child. They are dangerous. They are predators.
So that's Matt Powell at his worst. We haven't heard Cupcake say that on this channel in quite a while, but I did cover it quite extensively. Matt Powell said pretty much those exact words to me. I'm gonna let it go before I actually get into the allegations there. But he pretty much said those same exact words to me. And that's kind of what I find most disturbing about it. I don't know how recent this phone message here is, but that's what he said to me in our second conversation, our second face-to-face, the one that ended up in his movie Science Falsely So Called, was those same exact words. And a lot of things that he's going to say, probably right after I paused it there. And the fact that he's still 4 years later doesn't really seem to have changed his stance, despite the information that I'm about to feed you that's been fed to him 1,000 times. That he is Kent Hovind in that way, that the truth doesn't change the bigotries that he holds, the outright just blatant fucking hatred that this dude holds.
They're pedophiles, period. And if you actually cared for people, you wouldn't.
So Brett's in the side chat saying this was recorded today.
Put out stupid videos like the one you just put out, talking about how, I'm making it out like everybody in the LGBT should be executed, because that's not what I've ever said. That's not what I've ever believed or even thought.
Literally, Matt Powell just is. But even earlier in that message, I do believe he said what should happen is they should definitely be locked up. That the judiciary system should find homosexuality to be illegal, lock those people up, and then the crime is worthy of the death penalty, right? So I mean, it's essentially the same shit. Like let's create laws to where we can just kill a bunch of gay people because the good book tells us so.
I only believe that those who are pedophiles should be executed by the government, because it is the most loving thing. You accuse me of being hateful, when in reality that's the most loving stance that anyone could ever take. I mean, people like you are actually what's destroying America when you go around justifying pedophiles. Because
wait a minute, pedophiles? What are you talking about? It's that statement he had made earlier, that same exact statement that he had made to me over 4 years ago, that if you would have sex with a man, you would have sex with anything. You would have sex with a child, with a dog. So like he associates, and he tries to back away from it at different points, and he has at different points. Like he'll try to like clarify his atrocious beliefs. But he always goes back to that fundamental, like in his clarification as well, the vast majority of homosexual people are pedophiles. They're just, it's like in their nature, right? And why take the chance? It's not getting away too far from the initial claim of, well, all homosexual, at least if you're a homosexual man, if you are a man that is sexually attracted to another man, then you're a pedophile. And that's where I really need to just go ahead and address that, because as I've addressed it to him several times, that's just not the case. And it's just like a basic Google search is going to show you the correctness of pedophilia and the statistics there. Matt Powell makes a lot of claims, like 80% of all homosexual or of all people that are abused by pedophiles those pedophiles are homosexuals, and just he makes a lot of claims, and it's just not true. It's a myth, and most people know it's a myth. They know it's not true. This is from Zero Abuse Project. This is like I said, if you Google it, it's one of the first things that's going to come up. There's plenty of statistics out there. Don't trust this one. Go read any of them. But this is just like kind of an article at JWRC. We'll go down here to Science and Case Management Experience has shown us that most child molesters are heterosexual. Abuse is about power. And I'm sorry, like it's not very big on the screen right here, but it is as big as I can blow it up on the share screen. I could probably blow it up bigger. It'll be easier to read there. I don't think I'm going to show this one. Oh, that's the one I was showing. I need to pull that one. I'm not going to show that one. So I need to pull that one back up. The Science and Case Management Experience has shown that most child molesters are heterosexual. Abuse is about power and control, is not anchored by sexual orientation. Dr. Jean Abel, a researcher in the field of sexual violence for over 25 years, wrote an article for The Average Parent and Red Book magazine to take the knowledge he gained in doing over 100 scientific articles to provide specific warning signs for parents and caregivers. In this article, he explicitly states that most cases of boys being molested are attributed to heterosexuals. Quote, most men who molest little boys are not gay. Only 21% of the child molesters who we studied who assault little boys were exclusively homosexual. Nearly 80% of the men who molested little boys were heterosexual or bisexual, and most of these men were married and had children of their own. Dr. A. Nicholas Groth, researcher on adult male offenders and author of Men Who Rape, Psychology of the Offender, states that it is a myth that adult males who molest boys are homosexual. He provides several clinical examples to back up his findings, including the connection that molesters see themselves in their victims, but would not be attracted to adult males. They, quote, they see the boy as a projected representation of themselves. They feel themselves to be more child than adult, more boys than men, and therefore find themselves more comfortable, especially sexually, in the company of children. Medical data backs up this psychological observation. In a 1994 study, researchers reviewed 352 medical charts representing all of the children seen in the emergency room or child abuse clinic of a Denver Children's Hospital as a result of being sexually abused. In looking at charts for a 1-year period from July 1st, 1991 to June 30th, 1992, the researchers found that the molester was a gay or lesbian adult in fewer than 1% of cases, 2 of 269, in which the adult molester could be identified. So let's go up here while I pull that back up. So, I mean, it's just this myth that Matt Powell was probably fed to by his dad, Steve, a dude that I've met, a dude who's proselytized me and tried to convert me. A myth that he's been fed his entire life by Steven Anderson and Kent Hovind. Where's it at? So, other one down here. Yeah, there we are. I understand.
Because that's
all right. We'll put that back where it belongs. And it's just a myth. It just doesn't bear out in reality. He's going to make a claim that like everybody in the country knows like gay people are fucking pedophiles. It's just not true. There goes my camera because I pounded my desk. I still got to tape it one of these days, maybe. It's just not true. It's just this fairy tale of hatred. This justification that Matt Powell has in his head for his hatred. We're not going to get too much farther into this, but yeah, I mean, Brett, you know, like I'm glad that you're finally taking a stand against it. Everybody should take a stand against it. like I said, I did try to tell you quite a few years ago.
Exactly what
But you came along. I give you props.
you're doing. And why would you defend an quote-unquote orientation of people that actually leads the world in child molestation? You know this. Homosexuals are 10 to 20 times more likely to molest a child than any other people.
10 to 20 times more likely to molest a child than any other people. That's just not true. The science doesn't show that. There's no statistics that show that.
People group that exists than any other orientation that exists. But yet you're just going to get up there and defend them? Why would you defend a group of people, Brett, that leads the world in disease spread? These people are the problem in America, okay? And I'm not the only one who's saying this. You know, people like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, big names in conservatism all agree that these people many times are child molesters.
Like citations for that, because I don't think I've ever heard either one of those douchebags say that. And I don't like either one of them. If I'm not going to choose to defend either one of them. I don't know. I guess they could have said it, but I doubt it. Like, what are you even fucking talking about? I highly doubt that either one of those two individuals, as douchebags as they are as big a douchebag as Matt Powell is. Just seems like this total justification. Now, the only thing Matt Powell is right on is it does seem to indicate in the Bible that God, the God of the universe, Yahweh, really doesn't like gay people. Like, he really doesn't like swords crossing. For some reason, he's got this like thing.
I mean, you just look at the song that they put out by the Stag Choir. We're coming after your kids. They talk about how we're going to convert your children. We're going to quote unquote make them tolerant.
See, notice that like Matt Powell, he doesn't say that F slur word anymore on YouTube. He doesn't do that anymore. Which I find, like it's that old Mr. Atheist, the pumpkin campaign thing from a couple years back, where Mr. Atheist just laid total wreckage upon the NIFB and the algorithm, and YouTube just fucking obliterated the NIFB. Like, you pretty much can't say that shit. At least the NIFB can't anymore. Like, Steven Anderson doesn't even have a YouTube channel anymore, unless he made some new one. Like, he's got a new one under somebody else, which I wouldn't doubt. They had like whole studios for the shit.
Or be fair, all this nonsense. These people are after our kids, and for you to get up and defend them, Brad, that's just such a terrible thing to do. I think you should retract your video. I think you should retract your statements. You probably won't. But I just wanted to let you know.
It's like a terrible thing that Brett Keane is defending gay people and saying like, dude, no, you're that's not like cool. And like Brett Keane is showing like all of these other communications. But I think what's important is the message that's being said. And again, Brett Keane is saying that this was a message he got today, this very day. And it's a lot of the same shit that he fed me. I keep hitting my desk, so my camera keeps going down. It needs to stop. Yeah, it's the same shit he was telling me 4.5 years ago, like word for word.
That if you defend them, God's curse is upon you, and it won't be good in the long term. And I hope that you do repent, because I don't want punishment of the Lord to be upon your life. So
just defending gay people, God's curse will be upon you. Like, what the fuck, Matt Powell? What the fuck? I want to go to the end there because I think there's something at the end that I wanted to make sure we saw.
For death penalty, I think should go for them. It might be legal, like homosexuality is legal in some states.
What did I see back here? I think we probably want. Oh, have I made a? Yeah, I did want to address this with Brett. Have I made a horrible, tragic mistake by joining Christianity? Is this what God wants? I mean, it depends on what. How seriously you take the Bible, how literally you take the Bible. If you take what God says in Leviticus seriously, if you think that God doesn't change, I think you have serious issues. If you think that the God represented in the Bible is your God, then yeah, I think you made a tragic mistake by joining Christianity. That's my honest opinion. Perhaps I need to rethink all this. Yeah, I think you probably should. Brett. But hey, I got to commend you. At least you're calling them out now. Now we're gonna get to the main event. I found this shit. God, I can't hit my desk until I duct tape my fucking webcam. It's the cord and the back. So I'm just gonna mess everything up and do that. See if that helps. That's gonna help a ton. I should have figured that out years ago. Holy shit! Just put the cord on the other side of the computer, right? Yeah, that's great, man. Fucking A, knock figuring shit out after 4 years. All right, so this is Praise I Am, Veckel. Olive's there to begin with. Sparrow's there. I think they're there for the whole time, but you're not going to hear from them. So Praise, William, Cerberus, Veckel's going to come in. And this is Tog's going to come in. This is a clusterfuck. Tog is triggered. I noticed this, because I know Tog from a long time ago. Tog doesn't like me very much anymore for good reason. I'm a dick and an asshole. I was mean several times. But I remember Tog from back in the day. He was just a kid when he first started coming. Not really, I don't know, young, 20, 21 maybe, when he first started coming into my open rooms. And he was always a different kind of Christian. He had back then it was demons and angels and shit. He was always different. But over the years, I've seen him really strive to fit in with the rest of the Christian community. And one of the gimmicks that he tries to use recently when I've observed him is anger. Like he's like the raging Christian. It's pretty good. I dig it, but I think sometimes it's always easy to look at somebody else get triggered and say ha ha so triggered, but it's really hard to look at yourself when you get triggered and say ha ha so triggered. And I fall victim to that like everybody else. So I found this interesting. This is I don't know, I guess like Cerberus had went into a Veckel room the day before this happened, which was, I don't know, when did this happen? This happened 2 days ago. So like the day before that, I guess Cerberus X had went into Veckel's room and had a similar argument to what we're about to witness. Now, if you watch me long enough, I have a complicated history with some Cerberus X. Me and Cerberus, we get along sometimes. Sometimes we're at each other's throats. Sometimes he makes it his life's mission to troll the fuck out of me. So it's like this love-hate thing with Cerberus. He's this really right-wing motherfucker, even though he tries to pretend that he's not. But he's also really fucking smart, and he's really good at riling people up. So we're gonna see Cerberus Hex doing what Cerberus Hex does best, I think, and I'm here for it. Like as long as he ain't doing it to me, I really dig what Cerberus Hex does. So let's get into it.
Yahweh gave them to me, so yes, it was Yahweh. There you go. And there we go. What's up, Cerberus, and what's up, William? Good to see you guys.
Yeah, Deuteronomy just shows that Moses is lying.
No,
well, that accelerated quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, I thought you.
All right, so yeah, Cerberus coming in hot. As soon as he's acknowledged, yeah, Deuteronomy 10. That's just Moses lying. Oh, I am here for it. Let the dumpster fire begin.
You learned something here, Cerberus. Were you watching this?
I watched part of it.
I'm a smoke a bowl, and sometimes I can make myself do it on camera and be uncomfortable with it. I'm just gonna turn my camera off while I smoke my bowl. So yeah, we're just gonna turn off the camera while I smoke the bowl.
Do you understand that Moses and the Lord are speaking in third person in Exodus 31? Yes or no?
The writer is writing it in third person. Whoever that.
Well, no, the Lord is. the Lord is speaking in third person too.
Yeah, it's all in third person. The Lord isn't speaking in third person in the text.
Well,
so I want you guys to make sure you hear Praise's argument here, because it's weird. It's weird. What's up, Dr. Josh? Yeah, welcome. You're just in time for the good part. This is the fun part, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna rewind it just a little bit, just so we can. Which I'm pretty much rewinding it just to like where I started it anyway. Yeah, we're just gonna listen to what I listened to just now. I want you to hear the very beginnings of Praise's argument here, because it's fucking stupid.
and Yahweh gave them to me. So yes, it was Yahweh. There you go. And well, there we go. What's up, Cerberus? And what's up, William? Good to see you guys.
Yeah, Deuteronomy just shows that Moses is lying.
No.
Well, that accelerated quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, I thought you learned something here.
All right, thank you very much, the freak. I can't read what you put there. Damn it! Got to make my because it's underneath my shit. Make that just a little bit smaller. Let's see if I can read what you wrote there on my phone. I'm not sure if I can, but I think I can. Nope. All right. I hate it when that happens. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But thank you very much for your $3 donation.
Cerberus, were you watching this?
I watched part of it.
Okay. So do you understand that Moses and the Lord are speaking in third person in Exodus 31, yes or no?
The writer is writing it in third person. Whoever that.
Well, no, the Lord is speaking in third person too.
Yeah, it's all in third person. The Lord isn't speaking in third person in the text.
Well, the Lord.
All right, so the beginning of his argument is it's third person. Yeah, as Cerberus is clearly pointing out, like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, what the fuck, Praise? All right.
Lord wanted to be received in third person, so he did. If he wanted to reveal himself in third person, then he spoke in third person. So that's
it's not that because you're mixing two things. It's all written in third person. Some of it is quoting what Yahweh says.
Well, Yahweh wanted to reveal himself in third person. Like, you would have to agree with that.
Well, you're talking about
what?
How God wrote the text. I'm not concerned with that, right? The whole text is written in third person. That's the context of this part. Whether God did it or Moses did it or someone else did it, it's all third person.
So the way that Moses wanted to, the way the Lord wanted to reveal himself to Moses and write things down was in third person. That's what he wanted.
What do you mean by that, though, Praise? I'm trying to follow you. So it's not me being rude, but what do you mean that he revealed? Because he revealed himself to him physically.
No, okay. What I mean, it's the words that Yahweh wanted to be dictated on the manuscript, or the wherever they were writing some manuscript. That is what Yahweh wanted Moses to dictate on the whatever it was, a papyrus, whatever it was back then.
And what are you basing that on? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just asking you what you're using to substantiate that.
Because in Numbers 12:2, it says that Yahweh spoke through Moses, that all the words that Yahweh was speaking was through Moses, and Moses reflected that.
Okay. No, but now wait. Does that mean that all the words that Moses spoke were Yahweh's?
Yes, and all that.
So when Moses is speaking to his wife,
the clusterfuck complexity of the mentality of Praise I Am. It's just like, oh, what the hell is going on there? All right, so God thinks of himself in the third person, right? So I think that's what praise is claiming, is that when it refers to God in the third person, it's because God thinks of himself in the third person. It's like, wait, what? And I guess when God is speaking in the first person, it's only because in those moments God is thinks of himself in the first person. It is a clusterfuck of calamity. Praise, I am a clusterfuck of calamity. Let's continue.
About what their kid did to the carpet that they didn't have. I'm sure it was just a rug. But I'm saying that's not yet.
Now, essentially, and this is going to get kind of complicated, and I'm probably beneath some of it, maybe. I'm just going to have fun with it. But essentially, what is happening here is Cerberus Sex is making a claim, very accurate claim, I would say, that Moses lies in the Bible. And then it's gonna, as soon as he makes that claim, praise switches from Deuteronomy 10, which is written in the first person, to Exodus 34, which is written in the third person. So we immediately go from this claim to, all right, Christians immediately triggered. And that's what this entire thing is going to be, is essentially Jesus can't lie, God can't lie, Moses didn't lie. The Bible, there's no contradictions in the Bible. That's essentially what it's all going to come down to. And especially Tog is going to get triggered. Veckel's going to come into play. It's going to become this clusterfuck of a quagmire, of a dumpster fire. And I'm fucking here for it, man. So
Yahweh talking. Well, Moses has his own voice. There are times when Moses is not speaking for Yahweh.
That's a non sequitur. I'm not even talking about general life.
It is, but it's not. What I'm saying, okay,
I'm talking about Revelation, yeah.
Okay, when it comes to Revelation, yes, he's speaking for God, in the place of God to the people, as God to Aaron and the people, right? I give you that. But for us to say that we know exactly what tense, whether it was first person, second person, or whatever, past tense, that we don't know how that was dictated. How
like Praise's claim is like literally that God goes around thinking of himself in different tenses at different times. Like sometimes God is going around thinking of himself in the first person. So God goes around thinking to himself things along the line, God is so great, or like whatever name he has for himself. Yahweh's walking down the hallway. Look at Yahweh, he's so great. And then other times God thinks of himself in a different tense. And sometimes God is thinking, oh, look at Yahweh, he is walking down the wall. Look at Yahweh, he is so great. Like, it is the weirdest fucking thing. Like, Praise I Am is trying to tell you that he's literally in the mind of God and understand how the mind of God works.
How much leniency was given to Moses to express it in his own way, because you see a lot of the other authors expressing in different ways a lot of the same sentiments about God, but just with their own personality. You know what I'm saying? Their own choice of words, like "son of man" and things like that you would hear, like Moses.
Yeah. Well, every word in the Bible is inspired by God. Would you disagree or agree with that?
All the words in the Bible are about God. The story is about God.
So like Praise is like every word in the Bible is inspired by God. So that's a claim, and William just walks away from that claim completely. Yeah, the words of the Bible are about God, inspired by God. I don't know. I'll contest that for you though. Praise, like fuck, no, it ain't. But maybe the concept of God inspired them, but like it's human creativity, it's human imagination. People make shit up. Now, people make shit up either for deceptive reasons, which would be a lie, or for ignorant reasons, just because they don't know.
Okay. So yes, it is inspired, at least in that regard. If you're asking me, do I think, and I think this is what you're really asking me, do I think that God dictated word for word everything that's in the scriptures? No.
Right, but I mean, is the word inspired by?
Yeah. Here, let me turn this back on just real quick. I'm almost done smoking. Yeah, I have a rocky history with Brett, and I chose to not show the tail part of the Brett part tonight, the Brett versus Matt Powell part tonight, because there was this other video. The video I showed was put out like a couple hours ago, but there was this other videos that was put out a few hours ago where Brett is talking shit about me, and I chose not to show that video and go there because it took a couple years, late to the party, but I'll give him his due. He's when it came to that one video I did show.
Thank God. I'll answer that question for you. It already says it, that the word of God, every word that was written was inspired by God.
I didn't disagree with that. Spirit. I didn't, as far as dictated word for word. Inspired is different. It's like the difference between a true story and something based on a true story. Those terms mean different things. So inspired by, I'm not saying it's as loose as based on a true story, but what I'm saying, inspired by God, you have writings that are based on visions and dreams. There's direct contact with angels that's inspired by God. Like there's lots of ways that God inspires these writers, but they express themselves uniquely.
But I guess my point,
and no, he didn't, William Freeman. No, he fucking didn't. God, I'm just smoking. I'm not smoking weed no more, so I can turn it back on. Like God didn't do that. God didn't fucking do that. Fuck. You can't prove to me they didn't just make up Jesus. Grr.
Is that when we see the third person perspective, that is what God wanted it to be presented as. It wasn't, it just happened to happen this way that they're speaking in third person. So do you understand what I'm trying to say here? It's like, it's
yes,
not
but
like
I think you put what's happening with them in a place that I think you yourself can't even relate to, like the idea of talking to God. But I'm sure that you've had vivid dreams, right? And if you were to try and recount these visions as clear as they were in your mind or whatever, you would still communicate what you saw in that dream in your way of articulation. Agree?
Well, like, I mean, when
I think William's problem is he's getting hung up in the dumbassery of praise. Like praise don't make no goddamn sense right now. Like just praise is just trying to do everything he can to like justify the fact that Moses didn't lie and God didn't lie and there's no contradictions in the Bible. Like Jill is still yet to get a hold of me about having a fucking conversation about contradictions in the Bible. Talks all that shit. But like when it comes time to actually do it,
but
Ezekiel's talking about a wheel within a wheel. It's not easy. You can tell he's describing something he saw, but he doesn't understand.
Exactly. But I think the narrative here tells us that this isn't a vision. This isn't something that he's describing. This is something that God is directly revealing to him to write down. And Moses is writing down what God wanted to be written down. So,
all right, and this is where Cerberus will take over because of what you just said.
Well, yeah. Well, the way.
All right, so yeah, now we're back to like the argument.
Wait, do you think this is a vision?
Wait, what he just said agrees with my argument. He just said Moses wrote it down. Okay, that's my whole argument. Moses wrote it.
Well, no, I'm saying in general. The verse 28, I would say no, because verse 10 demonstrates it cannot be. But everything else.
Yeah, shit, I don't care, man.
What about 10 demonstrates it can't be? Because I don't think 10 has anything to do with who wrote.
It does, because the word he is used here. It says, he said, behold, I make a covenant before all your people. And who is he talking about? The he here, the antecedent, the grammatical antecedent is Yahweh.
Okay, now go down to 28.
There's no way you can deny that.
Wait, now go down to 28. I want to show you something.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this weird argument about who was on the mountain with God. Are the 10 Commandments part of the covenant? Who wrote this and what God said, and oh, it's gonna be glorious, y'all. I mean, I watched it twice. Like it was interesting to me. This shit's fucking interesting to me.
Right there, right at the beginning, capital E in the front, talking about Moses.
No, but the grammatical, you're.
Yeah, well, I did answer. Maybe I didn't make it clear. Yeah, I mean KJV. Yeah, mirror. I don't care. You won't get no strikes from me, my man.
Not following the grammatical antecedent of he.
Whenever I was going to say, even right there, because again, what Cerberus is missing, it's right there on plain on its nose. He was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. Neither he ate bread nor drank the water. He wrote the tablets of words.
I'm like, can y'all hear me? You should be able to hear me.
Of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Except the problem is the covenant and the 10 Commandments are two separate things. They're not the same thing. They're separate. The 10 Commandments are separate from the covenant. So the covenant that you see Moses talking and writing about is separate from the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments
but what is the covenant?
Please don't interrupt me. The 10 Commandments are also known as the 10 saying. The covenant in which you're talking about, in which Serb thinks that Moses and God are lying, is the covenant being made, not the 10 sayings. That's the conflation.
No, it's not.
There you go.
It's not. You don't even know my argument. I'm sorry.
Did you guys already point out to him Deuteronomy 10?
Yeah, that's where Moses lies.
Okay. No.
All right, so talk comes out. This one guy. And I've never heard of the 10 sayings. They're called the 10 Commandments. Now, I did Google, like, what the fuck is the 10 sayings? And it went right to, like, the 10 Commandments. I never saw anything of the 10 sayings. That's like fucking alien territory to me, bro. I don't know what the fuck you talking about. But I don't know what the fuck you're going to be talking about a lot of this shit. Oh, I mean, I do know what you're talking about. And what you're talking about just don't make no goddamn sense. I'll put it that way. So the 10 sayings, and like when Tog is gonna say that for like the rest of this. He's not gonna call them the 10 Commandments. He's gonna call them the 10 fucking sayings. And I think it's a way for him to kind of like distance the 10 Commandments from the God of Israel. When you can't do that. I mean, what the actual flying fuck, Tog?
Nope, you failed in proving that as well.
I know you don't think it. But
we actually, Phrase was right there at it, so we're derailing. Phrase was right there. We were reading 28.
So what we have here is Yahweh telling Moses to write it. Then Moses is writing
because it breaks here. So remember, this is in third person, so you're going to have to...
All right, so this is going to be a major point of this argument right here. Because now they're arguing about who's writing this and come on, no, Moses didn't write the fucking Torah. He didn't write the Pentateuch. And oh my fucking God. But let's pretend he did for the sake of the argument, as Cerberus is doing. This like literally says God is telling Moses to write these words, for in accordance with these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. Then it says he was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water. He wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. He there is clearly Moses. clearly. But Praise says, no, God damn it, it's not. And I don't understand how Praise can get there. And he said just right there, well, it clearly breaks. Like, what the fuck do you mean? And that's where this whole third person thing comes in. But like, just read the fucking text, dude. And this is where it comes into, like, Christians are going to get really, really upset because the Bible says what the Bible says. And they want you to be reading this at the same exact time, perpendicular with the readings and shit. Deuteronomy 10 through, let's call it 14, 15, 16, something like that. Oh my fucking God.
Follow who
is the he there?
Time.
Right, yeah, who is the he there? He wrote the tablets on the tablets.
He was there with Yahweh 40 nights, and he ate bread nor drank water. So we know this is, it can't be Moses speaking, or he's not speaking in first person, though. For your argument to work, he would have to be in first person for it to be a lie.
This is a story being told in third person. In 27, we have God directly telling Moses to write this. And he calls the words he gave them the covenant.
Are you saying that's the Ten Commandments, or are you saying that is the Ten Commandments?
So Praise said it can't be him because he's not writing in the first person. Now, this was covered at the very beginning where I first started it, right? This is written in the third person. The third person. That's been but now, because it's not in the first person, it's not Moses. Like, what? Deuteronomy 10 is in the first person. What is it? Exodus 34 is in the third person. Like, oh, it's praise. It's praise, y'all. It's funnier than shit. But now Veckel's going to get involved, and Tog's going to get even more triggered.
The covenant is not the Ten Commandments.
No,
the thing that he's doing though here, he's again trying to accuse God of lying.
Jay says the problem is the last he in Exodus 34:28. And the problem is he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the Ten Commandments. Who is the he there? And Praise is saying there's a break there when there's not a break there, right? Wait, what are you talking about, a break? He was there with Yahweh. He was there with God for 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water. That's talking about Moses clearly. Praise's position, thank you for pointing it out clearly, more clearly than I was, Jay. Praise's position is that there's a break in between these two fucking sentences. Now, they do the same shit when it comes to the fact that God makes mankind before he makes Adam and Eve. They say, well, it's a break. And then, they go back to like day in depth. No, they don't. Day 7 is a day of rest. Day 8, God goes into the fucking garden. It clearly reads like that. Clearly. And it was like day 3, day 4, God made mankind. I point that shit out in the Bible is Stupid. Fairly early, like one of the first few episodes of that, chapters 1, 2, something like that, maybe 3.
Because we already pointed out in verse 1 that Yahweh told Moses that he was going to be the one to write the Ten Commandments on the tablet. So he's saying that because of this one verse, therefore God lied.
And there we come to it. Now it's not really Moses lied. It's that God lied, because God said that he was going to write the commandments. And clearly he here is talking about Moses. That's where God lies. That's the inconsistency. Now, Cerberus is going to point it out. Like, there's ways to argue against that. But are these Christians willing to go there? That's the problem. And they're not. So they're just going to their argument is going to be, well, it doesn't say what the fuck it says. You shouldn't read it with your own two eyes, and you need to read them both at the same time simultaneously. It's fucking insane.
No, there are two lies here, and that is one of them.
Well, there are no two lies. There's no lies at all.
I know you don't think so. but it's true.
No, I know you do think so because you have a bias. You have a presupposition. You have a
Cerberus, lying involves intent.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
Exactly.
That's why one of the ways to escape.
That's why. That's what Cerberus is doing right now.
God can change his mind, or there's an inaccuracy. There's a bunch of ways to say it's not a lie, but I don't think Beckel or Praise is willing to accept the things.
I'm showing you have a burden of proof to show the he here is Moses. You have no way to prove that.
And you also have the burden of proof to show that there was an intent on the part of Yahweh to lie.
Well, I was
just
giving
because
it to you.
The he here is Moses does not
right.
mean this he here is Yahweh. You have to
demonstrate. You want me to give you something? You got to let me give it to you,
All
man.
right. The last he is sometimes written as he, implying that usage of he is God. There's an issue with the and that precedes that last he. I guess that would be an issue in the Hebrew. I don't know. But here, like to me, it just reads pretty clearly, and it's actually how I was always taught the story of the Ten Commandments, growing up in the Baptist childhood upbringing that I had, was that Moses was up there for 40 days and 40 nights, and Moses carved the tablets, right? And Moses put those tablets in the Ark of the Covenant.
I tried to give it to you. Talked over me. The Deckel talked over me, and now you're not letting me do it.
We'll let you.
That was my bad.
Before you respond, let me just say this.
Okay, say more.
There's nothing here. Okay, we know this is the he here because it identifies him as Moses because he was with Yahweh. But, however, there's nothing here in the he that identifies this as Moses. Nothing in here. That's your assumption. So I want to see the burden of proof, at least a grammatical argument or something, or hermeneutical evidence that this is Moses. Go ahead, sir. You have the floor. You have as time as you want.
It's right on the screen. 27. Yahweh says to Moses, write these words. That he calls it, he's referring to it as the covenant. Right? So then when you go down one and you see who's writing the covenant,
it's clear as day. There might be some issue with that second he, maybe in the Arabic, I don't know. But like when you put 27 and 28 together, it's just fucking clear as day. God literally tells Moses to write the words. For in accordance with these words, I've made a covenant. Now, where Togg's going to get all pissed off is that to Togg, the 10 Commandments isn't the covenant or even part of the covenant. I don't know where he gets that shit.
The he there is referring to Moses from 27.
Are you done? Just let me know when you're done.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, first of all, we tells when Moses to write here in 16 through 23, and it says that do not open up your womb or livestock. That's not the 10 Commandments. This is covenantal code.
I agree.
This is not the 10 Commandments.
I agree. It's not the first set. That's one of the lies.
It's not the 10 Commandments, which is what you're talking about.
Wait, what did you just say?
You're making a conflation between the 10 sayings and the commandments, sir. This is
Christian heads explode. So the 10 Commandments aren't the covenant. What are you talking about? But I'm going to let them get into it before I break it down for you.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. From Exodus 20 and even in Deuteronomy, that is the 10 sayings, not the command, not the covenant.
What is the covenant?
Covenant and commandments are two separate things. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Okay, but what is the covenant?
Societal laws.
Yes.
Ordinances.
That is the Jewish stuff.
The covenant is made with the 10 Commandments. I'm sorry.
You can keep saying that all you like.
It is.
No, it's part of the covenant, but it's not entirely the covenant. Yeah, the covenant is both.
Right. Exactly.
The 10 sayings have always been separate.
Right. So when you write the 10 Commandments, you're writing the covenant, though.
No, it is not. It is not.
Part of the covenant.
Okay, it's part of the covenant. That's the covenant. You're writing part of the covenant. You're writing the covenant down. Got it.
Because the 10 sayings aren't strictly alone to Judaism.
Right.
That's why they're the 10 sayings. It's alone.
That matters not to my argument. My argument
covenant. Well, so now who's doing the over-talking? Now who's doing the over-talking?
Yeah, I'm over-talking you because you over-talked me.
I was in the middle of the word. Was I? I don't think I was.
No, I'm treating you like you were treating me. Right? That's
all right. So now they're trying to say, well, to Talk's point. So I Googled in something like, are the 10 Commandments part of the covenant? Something like that. And this is what I got. It says the 10 Commandments or the 10 sayings. It's like fucking weird. The 10 Commandments are a summary of a works covenant. The old covenant. So it's a summary of the works covenant part of the old covenant. There's other parts of the old covenant. It's part of the covenant. It's a summary of part of. It's beyond them because to them it must be perfect. There's some justification here. We just gotta yell until we find it. And hey, I don't knock you for that. I am the Raging Atheist.
That's how I work. You treat me like that, I treat you like that.
That's fair. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you pause.
This is desperate.
Okay. So my argument works either way. Right? So when Moses at the bottom is writing the covenant, the 10 Commandments, when the 10 Commandments...
writing the 10 Commandments.
Come on, please.
He's not writing the Decalogue.
That's literally what it says.
No, it doesn't. It does not. Here.
So now they're going to get sophisticated with their words. Decalogue.
Let's read what it actually says.
It's actually referring to the covenant as the 10 Commandments there.
No, it says, write these words for in accordance for these words I have made a covenant with you in Israel. Nothing about 10
with these
there.
words. The words he just said.
But what were there weren't even 10 of them here and with the covenant of
They
Israel.
are,
he
actually.
tells you here. No, there's not 10.
Yeah, there are.
This guy is in flat out denial. We already went through this for a whole hour yesterday.
I'll bring it up.
And everything that you guys are showing him is exactly what I showed him.
All right, so Veckel coming in, just talking about the straight out denial that server sex is in. And server sex ain't in no denial here. He's in his element. This is what he do. You don't even know if servers really cares or believes in the position. There's just no way to really know that with servers. But what I picked up from what Veckel just laid down, and I can kind of imagine it in my head. I've never actually been to Veckel's channel. One of these days I need to find my way over there and see what goes on over there. But the way I got it pictured is that yesterday, which was the day before 2 days ago, they had this argument on Veckel's channel, and Veckel just yelled at him. I imagine Veckel in full Trump mode when Veckel gets going about Trump and politics and shit, and you can't get a word in edgewise. There's this perfect conversation me and Skylar Fiction had with Veckel and I think Jill at the time, and it's just once it went political, it was just Veckel, and that's kind of how I picture it. Is just Cerberus came in and didn't really get to talk much, and Veckel schooled him. That's how I picture it.
Yeah, you're lying.
In denial.
He is in denial. There's only 9 of them. Or
well,
8
I'm in denial. I'm not lying.
Yeah. Sir just loves the
You start in verse 14 all the way to 26, and then 27 says, "Write these words." What are these words? Is referring to the antecedent, the passages before it, the things that he told them to write are the things that we see in verses 14 to 26, dude. Okay.
Yep.
Some of those things line up with the Decalogue.
No.
Yes.
I think it's 14 to 23.
Either way, the fact of the matter is, in verse 27, he's telling them to write these words. What words? What is he telling them to write?
The words he just spoke.
Yes.
Let's count how
not
many
the
there
Decalogue.
are. So he says, 1, you shall not break altars, dash in pieces. 1, you shall not worship another god, Yahweh, whose name is, okay, there's number 2. Do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land.
Some of these are connected.
No.
I mean, that alone, notice he kind of blew by, whose name is jealous. For you shall worship no other god, for Yahweh, whose name is jealous. His very fucking name is jealous. is a jealous God. Like he stopped reading at that part, right? Like they can't even allow themselves to get a true picture of this monster they profess to believe in, right? Like this perfect God that has this perfect book is this, like, he's so fucking jealous. His name is jealous. Like, what the fuck is that? How is that perfection?
Oh yeah, okay. I don't. There's so much stuff because he's also going into Deuteronomy, right? Because there's the 10 sayings that are being written down, which are being reiterated, and then there's the covenant, right? Gosh, this is why I said you need more than one screen in all of it. You need Exodus 20 up, you need Exodus 34 up, you need Deuteronomy 5 up, Deuteronomy 9 and 10 up, because it's between 9 and 10 that you're looking at. Mostly in 9.
Yeah.
And this is where you're looking at. This is the crux of the problem. And I guarantee you're conflating two things. And then you also have the problem that it's being iterated and spoken of at the same time.
No, how can I be muted there? Oh, God, that was so funny. Oh, God, that was so funny. Dude, I always do it at, like, the worst fucking times. I said some funny shit. So essentially what Tog is saying there, muted, it happens like once a stream. It didn't for a long time. It was so funny. Essentially what Tog is saying there is that you need to have all the moments of time up. You know, you need to be able to see all the kingdoms of man in a moment of time, a single moment of time. And that's how he's describing how you need to understand God's fuckery here. Is because you need to have all of these screens up to where you can see all of these passages and read them at the same time, mind you. Holy shit. This one guy, for real. Like, it's been a while since we've talked. Like, what the fuck happened to you, bro?
And there's that, like, 4 things that's being conflated. And if you can't keep your hat on all of these things, you're going to get lost somewhere.
James Hogue, everybody that's joined us since the beginning, how y'all doing? Some fuckery going on here right now, let me tell you.
Let alone the grammar, right?
I don't know.
It's insane boggling.
You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You're saying that's a part of the 10 Commandments service? What are you smoking?
How is this such a big issue for you guys?
I'm saying this is the part of the 10 that's here. My other argument.
It's not a contradiction, though.
My other argument is that the 10 here don't match the other 10, so they're not the same words.
No, they are the same. It's just you got the 10, you got the Decalogue, and then you got this extra set of things here.
You got you're claiming there's the
Decalogue. The Decalogue hasn't changed. It's the same.
It's just a rider to the original.
Wait, so you're telling me there's a Decalogue of 10, and then there's these extra 10, even though these extra 10 repeat.
Well, in verse 1. In verse 1, he says that he's going.
You don't want me to start talking over you two.
All right, go ahead. My bad.
All right. And you got the second set of 10 that
the Decalogue is like the 10 Commandments. Like, they are going way outside of their way to just try to pretty much say, like, the Bible doesn't say what the Bible says.
Actually does repeat many of the things in the first set of 10. So you just think God's being super redundant here.
I don't know what you would call it, but all we do know is that in verse 1, he says that he tells Moses to create 2 new tablets. And on those tablets, he himself is going to write the same exact thing that he did on the first tablets. That's what he says.
I agree.
Starting in verse 1.
That is what it says.
That's verse 1. That's correct.
Yeah, that's the claim.
Okay. No. That's what we see in verse 1. That ain't no claim. It's a fact.
Right. That's the claim in verse 1 that God's going to write it.
God's
Okay.
claiming.
Right.
Yeah.
So he doesn't tell Moses to do it. He says that he's going to do it.
No, he tells Moses to do it in 27.
But that's where though.
That's where you have a problem.
Yeah, that's where you have a problem. I totally agree.
Verse 20.
Yeah, the inconsistency in the Bible is the problem, right? Like, so either the Bible is infallible, and you know, Serb had said it earlier, like they could argue their way out of this like correctly, but they're the Christians just won't allow themselves to go there. You can admit that the Bible contradicts itself, but they refuse to do that. So they're trying to go out of their way to say there's no possible way that God could have lied. And like, even if like, so when you're lying, there needs to be an intent for deceit, right? But when you're thinking about like the concept of, you know, the classical theist God, the triple O God, this perfect being who knows all of the future, all of the past, you know, he's outside of time. He knows he exists within every moment of time and every place of the universe, I guess. Maybe it's just here on earth. I don't really know how that works. But with that God that has that knowledge, right? Like, so the God that has knowledge of everything, and the book that's infallible and going to represent that God with the knowledge of everything. Well, he's not going to have an inconsistency like that, right? Like that's a major problem. So either there's an inconsistency within the fallible, very fallible but infallible book of Yahweh, or the book is clearly saying that God is capable of lying, which I think that there's several instances within the book that God clearly lies, just clearly.
No, you have a problem.
Hold up. Let me read.
And the thing is, like I said, you know, like God, even if it's something that doesn't really matter, the lie matters because God knows everything. So God knows he's lying in the moment that he's lying, right? And according to God, lying is wrong. It's immoral.
Read something here to you. The 10 Commandments found in Exodus 21-17 and Deuteronomy 5:6-21 are listed for prohibitions and the lesser extent commands. The Decalogue, literally 10 words, Decalogos, reflects the Greek translation of Exodus 34:28. The Decalogue is also a designation for the 12 commandments in Exodus 34:12-26. The Decalogue requests absolute loyalty to the Israelite God, Yahweh. They reject the worship of other deities, calling for honoring of God's name and his holy day, the Sabbath. Furthermore, they call for the honoring of the parents and the reject homicide, adultery, stealing and kidnapping, humans, and false witness and coveting. Soon after they were composed, as the early receptions are, I can't read history, distinguishes the first stone tablet of the Decalogue with the cultic themes. For instance, here, I'll post this so everyone else can read it too.
I don't even know what the fuck Tog is reading, but like, who cares? Yeah. Like, why are you reading from something else? Can't you read what's right in front of your fucking face? Like,
I'm not, you know, yeah, I hate doing that, and my eyes are killing me. I've been looking at screens all day.
These people,
right? The covenantal laws are not the shitty Bible. The Decalogue. They are the moral laws. So there's a moral law that is binding eternally, and then there's the covenantal laws, which are preliminary. They're societal. I mean, that's all that's going on. You need to learn this.
Well, I already know that. That doesn't actually refute my argument. That's why I'm not concerned.
It does, though.
How?
Because first of all, Moses is speaking in third person here, because the he here, he's speaking of himself, but then the he here, he wrote on the tablets as Yahweh, because that is the antecedent in the grammatical.
Praise. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is there a tradition here that you?
There's no way to imply from 27 that what Praise just said made any goddamn sense at all. Yahweh said to Moses, God literally says to Moses, yo, write these words. Oh my God. They try so hard. Which
of the God attributes are you trying to defend here?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Which one is? I'm trying to understand which one feels like it's under attack, because I don't have the same kind of view of.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh when William Freeman, Freeman, however the fuck he pronounces it, it's a made up name. It always makes me laugh when he tries to play like the middle ground. He tries to do that shit a lot. Like, dude, you ain't never played no middle ground in your life. You're like an extremist like everybody else. Open it up. I don't know, maybe. We could probably open it up for a little while. What time is it? 8:13. Let's see what I can do. I do got it up here, I believe. It's really hard the way I got it set up to watch anything. Jay. Let me think. Or no, it wouldn't be, honestly. Probably shouldn't be. I'm only really watching 10 more minutes. But yeah, like if you want to come on and put in your input here, that'd be cool. I'll open up a link. Yeah, I should be able to do it right from here. So we'll work that. I'll send a link out to you. You can come in and tell me what the deal is here. So I got to figure out that. Just enter without mic. Or enter without camera. So I got to do something about my camera. Camera. All right. That should work. So get the invite. Yeah, you can come in. I don't think I'd be able to show it while you're in here, though. But I only got like 10 more minutes that I want to watch. I just find it hilarious. Go back to there. I don't know. We could probably open it up for a while. I just can't go all night. So yeah, anybody can come in. And I'll figure out a way to show it if I want to keep showing it. So we'll go up here for a second. Hey, what's up, man?
This conversation is amazing because it's really a nothing conversation for the most part.
Yeah,
it amazes me how worked up these guys get. I actually talked with Tog and Serv and Will about this, and I think it was after that, because I think it was like during that stream of praises, something like that. Tog started up a live stream, and so I was over there and we were talking about this.
It was after that one?
What's that?
So it was after this stream, like on that same night?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if I remember correctly. So we were talking about this. I hadn't heard this, so Serv is explaining it to me. So we started getting into Exodus 34, 27 through 28 there. And what I was talking about is that when you look at 28, it says, and he. So that's conjunction that it's beginning with, right? Some of the translations, like the NASB, they have a little footnote next to he. Here's the other thing that gets confusing. Some of the translations use a he with a small h, like the NIV. I think the NIV does, and the ESV does, and a few others. The NASB uses a capital H for that last he, basically implying, and there's a little footnote, you click on it, and it says, the Lord God, or something like that. So somehow or another, in that particular text, that and, when it says and he, we would automatically read that as, okay, so we see this he here, Then we see, oh, he here, that's referring to Moses. Yep. And then there's his he, and then it goes, and he wrote this. And you go, okay, and he, meaning Moses, right? Based on the antecedent of how the text is written. But come to find out that he there, in some translations, is referring to God actually inscribing the words down onto the tablets.
So, but they use KJV only, don't they? I mean, they're the KJV boys, right?
No, they're they're not. They're not KJV onlyists necessarily.
I'm not sure about Veckel, but I don't think Praise is.
I think Veckel prefers to KJV. I'm not sure if he's an onlyist, but
Right.
so Exodus is written in the third person in general. Deuteronomy is kind of like a reworking of Exodus, and it's written in the first person, right? The thing about Exodus that what really tickled me, and this is something I didn't realize that they were actually trying to do from you doing this, is that separating the Decalogue from the rest of the covenant, right? The covenant is just an agreement between God and his people. So when you read this narrative, all of Exodus, and you get to Exodus 19, you see that God is telling Moses, get the 70 elders together, get the people together, and they assemble at the base of the mountain, and there's thunder and lightning going on. And then in Exodus 20, it's God communicating to the people of Israel what he wants them to do. These are the commandments. Do not lie, do not steal, don't fuck each other's wives, yada yada yada. And that goes on from 20 all the way through 23. Then on chapter 24 of Exodus, you get, okay, now it's time for Moses to go up to the mountain, and he's going to receive these stone tablets from God bearing the covenant. Now, what's interesting is earlier on in that in Exodus 20, God does tell Moses, it is referred to in Exodus 20, that God tells Moses to write these things down, right? To basically inscribe them as God is and repeat them to the people of Israel, right? So that's basically how that works. This is Moses writing all this down. This is for the first set of tablets, right? The very first, this is before the tablets, all right? The first set of tablets were ever even received. God's making this covenant with the people of Israel. So now here comes later, he goes up to Mount Sinai, he receives the tablets, right? Then Moses comes down the mountain, and I'm abbreviating here, comes down the mountain, sees what the people of Israel are doing, because now they're worshiping this golden calf and shit. He gets pissed up and he smashes the first set, right? Then later in Exodus, right, we see in Exodus 34, it's about Moses receiving the same, or basically getting a new set of tablets. So God tells Moses, cut out 2 more tablets, and then you bring them up to the mountain, and I will write down my covenant onto those tablets so they can be put into the Ark of the Covenant, right? Later, so Moses does this. He takes out 2 new tablets, he takes them, he goes back up the mountain, and God supposedly writes on them. That's what's indicated in 27 and 28. What they're indicating there when it comes to Moses writing something, is Moses is writing down again something that God is saying, right? Like he did in Exodus 20. But why would he need to rewrite anything down if all God is doing is making an exact copy of what was destroyed earlier? Remember, Moses had already written down everything that God was going to say earlier in Exodus 20. So why is he writing anything down anymore? So that's another inconsistency, possibly.
Well,
it does seem confusing, but it's very simple. It's just not reading the text from 19 and going all the way through it and reading it as a complete narrative. They're picking it apart.
Well, yeah, that's ultimately my criticism is they're like, don't believe what the text is saying right here. That, and yeah, it's clearly just like an inconsistency or whatever. Because I was always told that part of the story too. Moses comes down from the mountain, fucking the Jews are worshiping the golden calf or whatever it is, and he breaks those original tablets,
But the covenant is communicated to the people of Israel and to Moses, and Moses is inscribing, according to the text, he's writing this down, he's copying it down so that he can communicate to the people of Israel before the tablets ever come into play. That's all chapters 20 through 23 are dealing with. They're dealing with God's covenant to the people. And it starts out with that very famous Decalogue, right? The first 10 rules. And then it goes into like slavery. You know, if you get into a fight and your wife happens to accidentally grab the man's balls that you're fighting with, her arm is to be chopped off. All that shit follows.
So
all the way through.
So the Decalogue is the first 10 Levitical laws?
They're just they're just the first. This is just the covenant that's being set up for the people of Israel.
When
it's not necessarily the Levitical. So I think there's actually a Levitical covenant, but that's set up for the priests. The priests, the tribe of Levi, who are the priests and the school and scholars and stuff like that.
Like when I Google what is Decalogue, it just says the 10 Commandments.
Yeah. It's the first 10 of the covenant of the covenant that God is setting forth. That's all one singular narrative. It's not just, okay, there was 10 commandments, and these are those, like Todd said, these 10 sayings, and then there's some covenant coming afterward. They're somehow separate. No, right. That's a singular narrative on a covenant that God is putting out toward making with the people of Israel. Do these things, don't do these things. You can have these things if you want. All there.
And I think sorry, I didn't mean to step in.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, repeat that Deuteronomy is basically like a reworking, only a first-person writing, reworking of Exodus.
Right, and I think it's really important to note, like, when you read it in its entirety, and again, I'm not saying but I do go in and I do look at interlinears, trying to get a better understanding of the original Hebrew when I'm able to. What really sets this off is after the pronouncement, and I'm talking about Exodus 20, of the first 10 commandments. You can argue it's actually more depending how you break it down, but the first 10 commandments there is an action narrative. It isn't like the story stops. It's basically a divine pronouncement of God's will. And if you look at it at 17, we end with, coveting thy neighbor's house, wife, etc. And then the people see this manifestation of God's will, right? They're afraid. And Moses said, basically, really important that you fucking people listen. See, God just showed us it's important to listen. The people were afraid. They kind of backed up and says, no, this is a pronouncement from God. And then he just continues, right, with this narrative. Basically, it's like, it's after these first 10 pronouncements, there's a affirmation of God's manifestation, right? There's no break in the narrative other than there's thunder in heaven, right? And God his will is made manifest at Sinai. That's it. But for some reason, people interpret this as, well, this is a huge break in the text, and everything after it is different. And
why?
Because it falls into a really unique Christian narrative. Because what this allows you to do is reject the following laws after it. What it says is like, that's all we have to do is listen. Again, remember early Christianity, we're going back to Paul. I don't want to get into this. Paul talks about the 10 commandments, right?
We'll stop that.
And then other things. And then that the rest of the law doesn't apply to Christians. This is a really important narrative for Christians to get into.
Yeah, actually,
I'm sorry.
Actually,
go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that Pat, I think you're onto something, because Praise has repeatedly done videos where he's talked about trying to separate the casuistic laws that you see later in Exodus 21 or in Exodus from the apodictic laws, which he thinks is only the 10.
And I think what this is an apologetic thing that goes back to the early church, right? This is, how do we separate ourselves from the law? Well, there is this action part of the text. Now, if you read it in its entirety, Moses is talking, saying what God says, or God saying this directly through Moses, however you want to interpret it. But then there's this confirmation of God's will through this, let's just call it supernatural event, right? And again, depending on how you go into the Hebrew, it is flashes of lightning and thunder, right? But also the mountain like catches fire, or it's like a volcano, right? The people are freaking out, and then they backed away. And Moses is just confirming that, like, no, you need to listen to this, because if you don't, don't be afraid of this. Be afraid that if you don't listen to God, what he's saying, you're going to die. And then he continues on, right, with the rest of the law. It's not like there's a break in the law. There's a break in the action. that during the delivery of these covenants, the covenant itself, the entire body of laws, there's a manifestation of God's power. That's it. It's basically after the first 10, God says, listen, like it's a pronouncement, trumpets from heaven, however you want to interpret it. But the people were afraid of these physical phenomena that Moses says, hey, you need to listen, because if you don't, bad stuff's going to happen, as if God was echoing Moses' power, right? Like, it's, if you look at it like, it would be like me giving the first part of, because this is God's manifestations of power to give authority to what Moses is delivering from Sinai, right? Like this is why the narrative is written that way.
And it seems to go on a lot about the sons of Aaron, which is the priesthood, right? That's the priests.
Right. And it gives, when you actually start reading this, if you don't break the narrative after the 10 and read it through its entirety, it kind of makes sense. This is an entire institutional system. Like, right. This is God's commandments for the kingdom or people that will be Israel, right? Like, again, serious textual critics, and I wish Kip was available, but he can talk about how these are cobbled together, right? And so there's going to be revisions, revisements. That's why apologists want to read Deuteronomy and Exodus, the various law codes side by side, but you can't do it because they're cobbled together later. So you have to look at Exodus in its entirety itself, and then figure out where various revisions occur.
Yeah, see, I told Serb and Will that if they wanted to, and Tog, that if I were you, I'd maybe ask Dr. Josh, because what was really the thing there was, like I said, in Exodus 28, where it reads, and he wrote this, right? And then there seems to be like that he there's capital H in some translations, and in other translations it's a small h, but from what I can gain from the interlinear, the interlinear doesn't really, from what I can gain from an interlinear, I can't make heads or tails of how that he is referring to God if there's that and before it. I don't, it takes, and maybe it takes some contextual criticism that I just don't have.
Right.
But I can see why just from reading it, just been having a decent reading level, and you read it and goes, okay, this is from God, this is God. Oh, this is he, this is Moses, this is he, this is Moses, that he is Moses, and he wrote this. Okay, that's Moses too. That's it.
Right. And I really think it's just an apologetic. This is when you have problems with your own theology. I think in early Christianity, we see this push from Judaism, right? This, again, with Paul, we see this need or necessity to reject those that believe that you need to convert to Judaism to be Christians. And now that's affected Christian theology for the next 1900 years. And modern Christians, it's so much a part of modern theology is they always consider the 10 Commandments separate, but they really don't have a textual basis to do it. It's a theological basis and a cultural one, right? Like, we need to be separate from Judaism, so we're going to keep this 10, and we're going to push everything else away. Otherwise, they would have to have agreed with some sects of early Christians that believe you have to convert to Judaism and maintain the law in order to be saved, in addition to accepting Jesus Christ as a Messiah, right? Like, so this is one of the issues, is this distinct rejection. So you go into your theology and you reverse engineer this apologetic very early on, 3rd, 4th century, 2nd century even. This was already being done among early Christians, how to remove Judaism from our Christianity. And by doing that, by saying, look, there's only this small section of laws that apply to us, and then the rest of it we can just chuck away, is something that has shaped Christianity for the last 1900 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take off, guys. Thanks for having me on. I hope I clarified some of that for you, Knock, maybe. But ultimately, I don't think it, like, in that entire conversation, like, I don't even know why they were getting so worked up about that's. I can see why you reviewed it, Knock, because it is hilarious to watch these guys get presented with such a very simple challenge, and then have this guy come in there and basically make it to them, which sounds like an inflammatory troll. Moses is lying there. And they go, what? And then everything, all of a sudden, spirits start to escalate, and you just sit back and you laugh and you go, you don't have to get worked up over this. You can just sit here and have the conversation like I did with Serve, Tog, and Will. Nobody got frustrated. I think Tog may have gotten a little frustrated, but not like uppity upset. But yeah, it was funny. I was just like, I really don't see the point in having this conversation. It might be it's interesting as a contextual criticism, but I definitely wouldn't die on that hill. And I don't think Serb was expecting to die on the hill, but boy, it sure got Veckel worked up.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the 10 Commandments referred to as the 10 sayings?
No, I've heard them as the 10 Commandments, the Decalogue, but the 10 sayings I am going to adopt. I do like that. I don't. It's so funny. I'm going to start using that. I think Todd could start a trend there. Yeah, it's just the 10 sayings. Everything else after that, those don't matter.
Well, I've only heard it referred to as the 10 sayings when they're trying to soften the context of them, right? Like, well, these are just like 10 sayings. They're not. I always joke. Are you saying they're basically the 10 I think I shoulds? Like maybes, because they're not. I mean, it's much more rigid than that.
They're not prescriptive so much as they are kind of a normative. Like you might like vanilla ice cream, but you don't have to have vanilla ice cream. That kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, you say 10 sayings, I start thinking Buddhism. I'm like, we can start talking some Tao Te Ching, but like sayings. The word saying and the word commandment, those are two fucking different things, man.
Right.
Well, and I mean, that's really how they distinguish, because Praise has done this, where he's literally talked about those being like the true apodictic laws that God wanted. These are the laws that you will do this, you will do that. Whereas the casuistic laws, those kind of come in a little bit later, like if you want, if you do this, then this will happen, right? Those are the casuistic laws, but not those first 10. Those first 10s are fucking concrete, right? You do not do these. Right. But the rest of that covenant, those are just, those we can just kind of, we can, well, like Pat saying, it seems it's more of a theological reconciliation. It's not a really, what's the other term I'm looking for? It's more of I agree with Pat. It's more theological than anything else.
Right. I just do think it's interesting, though, that they don't realize that at the end of the pronouncement after 17 is this supernatural phenomenological validation of it being God that is speaking, and that Moses is his mouthpiece, right? Like that's all it's really saying. And then it's like, yeah, we can stop listening now. Like, okay.
No.
Moses basically says, if you don't listen from this point on, you're going to die.
But
I mean, if you do have to listen to the ones that come after, some of them are just batshit crazy, right? So they can't reasonably acknowledge that they are on the same level as the first 10, because doesn't it mention something about burning people and just horrible stuff?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you could. I'm not. Don't quote me on this, but like, wouldn't like Jesus's personal commandments be like part of the new covenant? Like, and that's some pretty horrible shit. Like, pluck your eyeball out if it goes astray and stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, that's where they step in and say that that's sort of sort of poetic or sort of hyperbole kind of thing.
Yeah, it's hyperbole. It's all vocal hyperbole to get people to like perk their ears.
Does anybody know, like, what did the Jews think? Like, is the he there? Did God write the first, like, personally write the first set of commandments? Or
yes, that the way that narrative is in 24, Moses goes up and God has carved out the tablets that contain the covenant.
God has a physical body, like, so by implying like he wrote them,
like
he
spirit
has a
fingers.
body.
He's spirit fingers.
Yeah, spirit fingers.
He controls the ways of nature with his mind. Either way, yeah, those tablets are in Exodus 20 are the tablets are carved out and written and everything, I believe. Or maybe not. There might be the detail in Exodus 20 that Moses actually carves out the actual stone. I can't remember. Either way, they're funny stories, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, and the only thing I would add is if you look at what follows after, first thing that we talked about is like, how do you construct an altar? Like, if you just follow from 20 forward, these do seem like liturgical and community-based laws, right? Like this is about how you're going to construct a religious cultural system, right? Like a community-based religious system. I mean, why does God have to tell people how to make altars if people all the way back to Abraham were making altars, right? Because this is the firm establishment of what it's going to be under Moses, like a Hebrew, right? A member of this community. So there's actually going to be like, this is how we make our altars. This is how we feed our priests and give sacrifices, right? Because one of the things is when they're talking about offerings, they're talking about, okay, your meat offerings, make sure you give some to the sons of Aaron. Some of it goes to God, but the rest feed the priest. Same thing with bread, right? Like, and they're telling you, make sure you add some salt into your unleavened bread because, we don't want it to taste crappy, right? Like, if you actually look at the text, it's like a lot of texts in the ancient world read. Like, there is a communal maintenance aspect of it. And so I think when you get into it, it's not that hard to understand what's being done here.
Yeah,
they kind of selectively.
I'm up, guys. I will see you later.
They kind of selectively appeal to some of this because you get into the sort of slavery argument. I'm so sorry to bring that up again, but they talk about the stealeth a man, which is an Exodus as well. But the one that's following that in Exodus 21 is if you curse your mother and father, you're put to death. So they're kind of saying, well, one's moral, but the other isn't. We're going to take this as a sign of the Bible's morality, but ignore the horrible stuff that comes straight after it. It's very, very strange. I don't understand. Like, if you're going to cite a book or use a book as a moral guide and say, hey, slavery's not okay because the Bible says that if you steal off a man, you're going to be put to death. How do you just ignore everything around it and sort of say, hey, it's guiding you morally?
Yeah, it's interesting when you go through how the text is written and it's compiled together, right? Like, it's after these various things are done, midway through, like, I think it's in 23. Again, I don't want to do this top of my head. Maybe it's in the beginning of 24, but I think it's 23. Like, God talks about like future conquests of the enemies, right? Like in the middle of all this discussion, because he's going to go back into like rules about in 24 about the covenant. It's also like, by the way, you're gonna I'll look it up in a minute, make sure I'm right, but somewhere in the end of 23, there's going to be this promised conquest of the land of Canaan.
Yeah, like, no, actually a few of them. For mine angel shall go before thee and bring thee in unto the Amorites, the Hittites, the Pezerites, and the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jezebelites, and I will cut them off. It's like, what the hell?
Right, and I think that's kind of important too, that this whole idea is this manifestation of like a cultural system, right? Because one of the things I know that he does when he's talking about the conquest of Canaan, God reiterates, you basically drive out your enemies, but make sure you don't worship their gods. Now, why does God have to repeat himself? A couple chapters later, when he's already said, you shall have no other gods before me, right? Mm-hmm. But basically, once you go into these lands and settle, I don't want you guys starting to worship their gods. Like, if you look at it, again, this is why people look at the compilation of the text. It's interesting because it is something that seems to be the maintenance of a cultural system. Like, hey, just because we start becoming powerful and we conquer these people, make sure you don't turn your backs on our gods. Don't worship them. Like, again, it's a projection because of the tendency of people to be polytheistic, even during the time of the Hebrews, right? Like, whether or not having no other gods before me, people have assumed that's monotheism, and that's generally not how academics look at this particular text in tradition. This is a henotheistic system, right? So it's a primal deity, and basically when you go to the gods of the Canaanites, don't worship their deities either. So again, this is some revision that's basically going on with the texts over a long period of time. There's it's not just deletions, it's also insertions, right? That's one thing with textual modification. Again, I'm not an expert on this. I kind of wish Kip or Josh was available.
I mean, I'm certainly not up to your knowledge, Pat, but it does seem like sort of a centralization of a, you know, people with differing kind of belief systems into one solid, well, this is how you know, this is what we believe kind of thing. This is how we should conduct ourselves.
Right. It preserves a cultural identity, right? Like it rejects one as well.
Yeah, I was watching that thing with praise, a little bit of it. I couldn't get the energy to go in there and argue with them. But
I wish I'd have seen it live.
Sorry.
So I wish I'd have seen it live because I probably would have went in there and argued with them for a while.
I don't know. I just didn't feel like it. It was just sort of, you know, I've done a few shows. I think my audience is getting sick of me going in and hassling praise, so I'm going to leave it for a while. But I'm going to go. But I just wanted to apologize to you, mate. Last time I saw you, we kind of got into a bit of a argument. So I want to apologize and sort of say, hey, I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
Did we? What about
global warming or you know, climate change?
I don't know. Yeah, I probably didn't really consider it too bad of an argument because I go in Gurr streams and they're all dicks.
Wow, shots fired. Look, yeah, okay, well,
yeah, I appreciate it though. Yeah, I get heated. Yeah. I get heated sometimes, so it's probably nothing you need to apologize about. Probably be more on my
so do
side.
I occasionally. I think everybody does at some point, but yeah, don't focus on it. I really wonder, like with praise and stuff, I just, you know, the level of sort of mental gymnastics they're doing is I mean, do you call it impressive? Do you call it sort of, you know,
that's
sad?
The thing with me,
like,
because well, and I am glad for the, you know, the clarification, especially with, you know, like the Jews clearly, and if you read Deuteronomy 10, it does imply that at least with the first set of tablets, God does write them himself, or says he's going to write them himself. And that's why, like, Cerberus was saying he lied, was because Moses then later says, well, no, actually I wrote him. So I am glad for the clarification, but it does seem funny to me that, like, they seem this great need to justify that God can't lie. And I'm just like, I don't know, I've been kind of sitting here reading just like different verses where it like pretty much says that, yeah, God lies. You know, Jeremiah 4:10, like there's so many of them, you know, like where it clearly says that God is capable of deceiving and lying. I don't even see what the issue is here. Like if God does it, just say it's not a lie because God does it. That's what most people do.
If you believe in omnibenevolence, sort of lying carries with it an intrinsic kind of evil, an intrinsic you know, thou shalt not bear false witness. So I think it's that violation of an omnibenevolent God that's the problem.
Yeah, yes. And do they even really believe in that shit?
Yeah, God doesn't lie in the Bible, Rage. You're just looking for it. And I called in Mark because I wanted to say I'm sorry. I've been kind of rough with you lately.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. No worries. I forgive you. No worries at all. Yeah, I just wondered if I'd done anything to offend you or something, P-Town. Like, you know.
No, you haven't.
You're an atheist.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, there's not much.
I've been pushing back on Mark a little bit lately and not treating him equal to everyone else.
I wouldn't say pushing back so much as just outright insulting my intelligence, actually. But, you know.
You gotta love it.
Potato.
Well, there's a fine line between, you know, insulting what someone thinks and believes and insulting them, and you know, it is what it is what it is.
I think that personal stuff, and you can sort of, you know, question somebody's beliefs and ideas, but I think that's a crime from personal insults. I think that, you know, if I was to say, hey, that idea, I find problems with it here, here, and here, and saying, hey, you're stupid for believing that. That's two totally different things. I think there's
well, have I attacked you personally?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example? so I can say I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. So the other day when you basically said I'm not smart enough to understand the topic that we're talking about.
Well, pause.
Yeah.
I don't think that was me, because I don't say things like you're not smart, because objectively you're a smart guy, Mark.
Okay.
So
okay. Well, I mean, thank you. But
if I said that, that would shock me.
Well, I don't really want to get bogged down, and it's fine. I don't. It doesn't really worry me anyway. I mean, it's just sort of whatever. But that's okay. I'm fine with it. It's fine. You know, I've got everything on my channel anyway, so I can certainly find it and give you an update. But thank you, Pete Down. That's fine.
This is why I've been more aggressive with you lately, Mark, is because I don't want to see you start to go towards serving an agenda instead of seeking truth. That's what I'm worried about with you.
He's worried about you and your atheist ways, right as you're trying to leave.
Well,
I can't really help it. I've been an atheist all my life. You know, I didn't convert to atheism. I was born an atheist, right?
I just noticed a subtle change recently, and I just didn't like the trend.
The atheist agenda.
I'm gonna have to jump off in a few minutes. I just want to make one more point that I should have made early on. But when we look at these texts, particularly the difference between Exodus and Deuteronomy, right? Remember that, again, not my area of focus or expertise, but I'm remembering correctly, Deuteronomy is actually considered the older book, that it was compiled probably sometime during the reign of Josiah. And that the book that we refer to as Exodus, which occurs in the text before, particularly the Christian Bible, right, is an earlier book after, in relation to Genesis, is actually a book that most scholars consider is not written until the post-exilic period, basically sometime between 530 something and 330. Like, it's a late book. So the fact that we're looking at Exodus and then we're looking at Deuteronomy, remember the time periods they're supposedly compiled in, and you got almost 3 centuries difference between those two texts.
I would argue that it was written by Moses, maybe not actually scribed by him, but it was given to him word by word by God. So I just want to let the audience know, whoever might be watching, that Pat Lawenger's view is not held by all Christians, but
not the evangelical Christians.
Right. I'm not going to ascribe to a word he says.
How long did Moses live, Pete?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I like to guess things, though. I think it's almost 200. Pat might know this one.
Well, I mean, it had to be over 300, right? Because
Pat wouldn't believe that he
Pat just said there was like a 300-year difference in when they were written.
Well, did you just listen to what I said, though, Ray? Just said that's a bunch of hogwash.
I do want to explain that here at P-Town has just come in and said, because of his belief system, he's rejecting the overwhelming consensus of experts in this field. Like,
sure, but I do have evidence for it. It's not without evidence.
It's all personal revelation, right?
You got evidence?
No, that's not true.
Wrote the Bible, let alone existed.
So, P-Town, was Moses an idiot, or did God stutter? Because he says the same thing in the Pentateuch numerous times. Like, if we look at the textual account of the repetition between Deuteronomy and Exodus, obviously giving the law one time wasn't enough, right? So wait. So in your
Pat, are you a whack off, or do you just like to jerk off all the time on screen? What kind of argument is that?
What kind of argument is are you a whack off? Like, for real?
So this is what
what kind of argument was that? Is God an idiot? Or is Moses an idiot? Like, come on.
I said,
what else am I supposed to say?
Because the book,
he's more asking why he had to repeat
himself,
repeat things,
and to have some of those repetitions not be in accordance with each other, unless you engage in some very heavy apologetics. The funny thing is if Moses wrote them in one sitting, even over the course of his life, he would have those texts to go back to. But it's obvious that he didn't, because there are discrepancies within the texts themselves, which only can arise by the text being written and compiled and redacted over a long period of time. The fact that you reject this and then you engage in anhomony and reject the consensus field of scholarship, many of which are Christians, by the way, the majority of textual critics and New Testament studies are actually at least theologically based as Christians or related people that are also like, I don't want to, Old Testament studies, a lot of people are Jewish and other faith systems as well. But the fact you just engage in hominem shows that not only are you obtuse in your thinking, you're unwilling to engage with any argument doesn't lead credence to your belief system. And with that, I'm going to go, and I will end with an ad hominem too. This is why talking to people like you is really fucking useless, because you're too dense to actually want to pick up on the material. Have a nice night.
Yeah, Pat, come on. Like,
I kind of agree though. Like,
I was only. I think it's my turn after all that. Sure. Look, I was only. I have to step in there, and even though I know how offensive it can be, just because people will mistake him as being a Christian when he's not.
Pat.
Yes, they will, because they think
because no way they're going to mistake him for.
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. When people are popping in and watching something, and they listen to him, how he sounds all scholarly and how much knowledge he knows.
He's a scholar.
I would say that he's a scholar. Sure.
You don't need to leave, Shannon. You're fine. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Relatively peaceful. Just don't feel like sleeping.
He's
I
an
would say that
archaeologist.
he's an archaeologist.
Yes, he has credentials in archaeology. And the people that he are talking about are biblical scholars, P-Town. So
I have to say what Christians believe is what I have to say it. It's part of my job.
Yes, but sort of what we're talking about is a bunch of people who are academics who base their lives on going out and finding what actually happened in the past, like not to do with their beliefs, but what actually happened. That's their goal, is to find out the history of this, the cultural implications of it, all of the actual facts behind it. And you're sort of just saying, hey, they don't know what they're talking about. And all because of your belief system. I think that's what Pat has a problem with, because you're discounting like a field of expertise with, you know, people in there that are Christians that have analyzed this for all their lives.
Before you go on your normal monologue, Mark, let me try to reiterate where I'm coming from here. I'm not trying to discredit him as an archaeologist or whatever field he's in. I'm trying to just make sure that I mention that Christians have a different view. And that's it. I haven't even stated why I have a different view. I just wanted to make it clear, just so there isn't confusion.
Well, I think you can do that.
And just because I do that, doesn't mean
people.
Just because I do that doesn't mean I'm insulting him.
That's not what I'm talking about. You actually just called him names and stuff. Did you not hear what you said? Can we roll back the tape a second? Like, can we actually?
Let's roll it back.
Yeah, it was some kind of like really weird attacks. I can't remember. I just pointed it out specifically.
Well, when I do attack people back, it's usually when they lump Christians in, or
sorry,
if they're.
I was reading, like, because I'm trying to, like, most scholars, whether they're Christian scholars, Jewish scholars, I mean, they understand, like, Moses writing the Torah is an issue. Like, you know, I'm not even going to get into like whether or not Moses existed. Like, I can sit here and tell you, like, I don't think Moses existed, and I'm not stating something that's very controversial to history. Like I would be if I were to sit here and state, like, you know, Jesus is a myth and didn't exist. You know, that's going to get some historians stirred a little bit there. But me saying that about Moses, they're like, you know, maybe. Who knows?
Are you talking about scholars?
Scholars, whether they be Christian, I mean, no matter what.
Then I have to take a stand, Mark, and say that's baloney. Like, and I'm sorry if it's offensive to Ragging Atheist, but that's baloney. And then I'll let you guys continue.
Well, I don't find it offensive. I just don't think it's an argument. That's all. Sort of just saying it's baloney.
Well, no one asked me for why I think what I believe, even though he'll claim over and over again that I don't state anything about why I believe what I believe. He has no interest in knowing. Pat doesn't want to actually sit down sometime and schedule something with me and go over something objectively. He wants to criticize and then bounce.
Who?
Pat.
Well, see, the problem is that when, like, that's why didn't you listen to what he just said? Like, after you sort of harassed him, he said, "This is why I don't talk to people like you."
Because he doesn't think I'm smart enough to be able to talk to him to his level.
That's not the reason. It's because you get offended whenever his academic criticisms violate your personal beliefs.
No, he gets offended when I challenge them.
No.
As a scientist, he shouldn't be offended when I challenge him.
He's not there to preserve your feelings about your faith, P-Town. He's there to make academic analysis of the facts. And talking about bouncing, I do have to go really soon, but, you know, maybe, I don't know, like, I can understand with you're getting very, very, very angry about sort of, you know, these criticisms, and these criticisms are, in my view, valid, and in the view of academia is valid. So, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I'm really sorry you're offended at that, but that's the way of the world. Sorry.
I would just say that appealing to authority all the time, Mark, and for Pat, and for a lot of the time Rage, I don't think that that's a very good argument. Okay. Constantly saying that scholars say this, we know this. Those aren't, I wouldn't consider those very good arguments.
Well, it's not an argument appeal to authority because they are actually the experts. An appeal to an authority is when the person isn't an authority on the subject.
So roll back. What did you just say?
I'll just explain the reason why. The reason why is because we're not appealing to them as people. We're appealing to them and their methodologies, which produce the most consistent results. So it's like if you say, "Hey, I should see a mechanic." That isn't an appeal to authority. That's literally the best way to find out why your car's not working. Does that make sense?
I understand from your perspective where you're coming from, and I would take a stand and say, this world is corrupt, and when it comes to science, when it comes to where you hold your beliefs in the people that are in positions of authority, you hold your beliefs in positions of authority. That's where, and you appeal to it all the time, Mark.
Well, it depends if you can sort of back up your beliefs with evidence, and so
right. But we don't go to the evidence. We go to your positions of authority.
So you don't go to the evidence. Historians and academics have the best. Anyway, look, I got to go. So I will see you later at P-Town.
Yeah, have a good night, Mark. Thanks for coming in.
People, but, yeah, no worries. I'll catch you later, no. And see you, Flow State. Take care, man.
Yeah, and he's not like running there because he was leaving when you came in. You know, for one, so let's not even appeal to authority, as you might put it, to like historians, which is something that I really don't do. You must not have heard my rant yesterday about, you know, Jesus being a myth. You know, like historians don't back me up there. But like just on the idea of what you said there, right? Like, so you think that Moses lived for 200 years? Like, why would you think that? Why would you think that's possible? Let's say he did live for 200 years and he was able to write the Torah within a 200-year span. Like, how? What about this reality gives you indication that that's even possible? Yet, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just like never. It's been impossible up to this very point here right now, right?
Okay, so yeah, Rage, let me try and answer that question. But first, I hopefully clearly stated, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head how long Moses lived. I like to guess things, and I think it was just short of 200. It's a total guess, 100%. Okay. When it comes to, I believe that he actually penned, or he got word by word or letter by letter the Torah. I believe that because I believe that it was encoded, because you can see there's equal distant letter sequences in the Torah that make it encoded so you can see that it's one package, right? So the assumption that I have, and I can see that, I can prove it I can prove that it is there. Whether or not it's that viable, it's up to the interpreter, but it doesn't change the fact that they are there. And then the other side of the argument would be, did it happen by chance? Or did the scribes, these other authors that Pat would present, did they know it and predict it each time a new book came out? I would say the likelihood of that being the case is pretty low. And that's why I hold the belief that it was written by Moses, maybe not penned by Moses, but ultimately the letters, the words came from God. I think that there's enough evidence within the text to prove that, or at least to assume that's the case based on the evidence.
So you're kind of stuck on Moses writing the Torah, and
this is the only story I believe in the Old Testament.
Oh, go ahead.
Am I muted?
No, I was muted. Go ahead.
Okay. If I remember correctly, Moses is the only story in the Old Testament, and like the Exodus story is the only one that doesn't have correlating stories in other cultures. That doesn't really.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, there's myth. There's a flood myth in every culture across the globe.
But you don't think the Moses is flood myth related? Or Moses? What are you saying? Oh, I see. Okay.
The Moses story is only it's not found in other cultures.
Well, definitely, you're not going to find Hebrews slaves leaving Egypt in the Egyptian culture. I don't think that they really accept.
Well,
that.
I mean, you could have the Moses story without them having to be Hebrew.
Specifically, I mean, like the context of the flood myth being a thing is that it happened. Everybody witnessed it worldwide, right? But I understand what you're saying is that even if contextually something as unbelievable as what Moses did happened, there were still mariners at the time. There was still trade. The story would have spread to other cultures.
I mean, the Garden of Eden story has derivatives in other cultures as well. Not everybody on Earth would have experienced that.
Right, but the reason why there's flood myths in every culture is because floods happen in every culture, and prior to a certain period in time, largely most cultures were on an island, so to say. They only extended so far, and they didn't have worldly knowledge. You know what I mean?
Sure. I guess I was just saying something that was interesting. I'm not like making a point.
I mean, I understand like P-Town thinks that Moses wrote the Bible, and he thinks that Moses existed, and there's really no evidence of any of that. So
see, you keep saying that, but I keep telling you that there is, and you just keep denying it.
You say that there's evidence within the text, but like.
There's a simple proof that the text, you can do, Rage.
We know when the Torah was written. It was written over a period of hundreds of years, like hundreds.
Well, I'm showing you that you yourself can go look at this evidence I'm telling you is there for you to go see, and evidence? You're just willfully not looking at it.
What evidence?
So go to it. This is just one example, but just go to So their sevens are special in the Bible. Would you agree? The letter 7.
I don't know, maybe, but
I don't know how much you know about the Bible,
You're
Rage.
getting hung up about like some kind of.
I'm not getting hung up. You're getting hung up, Rage.
Well, no, you're getting hung up about a numeric code within the Torah.
that stuff is relevant. Gematria.
Well, as far as I understand,
thank you, Flow State. Rage. Let me show you. It's simple. You will be able to do this in 5 minutes if you try.
My statement. Chill out. As far as I understand it, like the Hebrew alphabet itself was number encoded. Like they attributed numbers to their actual alphabet. It's how when like you can read like the number 666 can literally be translated numerically to Nero, right? Like, you know,
you're getting ahead of yourself, Rage. Let's stay on focus here. Like you can do this simple code.
Come on, Rage.
No, Rage, I get it. Like you do know some stuff when it comes to it, but like in this particular case, you just go to the 49th letter of the first book of Moses, go to the 49th letter of the second book of Moses. When it comes to the third book of Moses, you go to the 4 letters of this in 7 increments. And then the last 2 books, you do the 49th and the 49th, and it spells something out.
Letter of the book of Moses, like what?
Look, the point is you can. There's ways to integrate these 4 books or these 5 books, so you can see that they're an integrated message system. You can mathematically prove this. Is what I'm saying.
more willing to believe that the whole Jesus thing never even happened and was really a mushroom cult more than
We're not even talking about Jesus yet there, Puff. Why don't you go smoke your weed somewhere else? Okay, we're having an intellectual conversation here.
Oh my God. Like Christians, come on, you got like fundamental Christians, you gotta come with something better. Like, oh, you're just smoking weed. Yeah, you guys fucking literally get
I don't know how long you've been
church.
smoking weed for. I don't know how long.
Like you guys, like you have a faith that's embodies getting
we're all
tipsy
sinners
at church.
We're all sinners except for you're interrupting an intellectual conversation with your jargon. So go pet your dog and smoke your weed somewhere else.
Your argument was as intellectual as fucking ancient aliens, bro. Like literally, this is fucking modern, circa current history, fucking or current times, History Channel grade shit going on right now. Like seriously, bro, Discovery Channel grade shit going on right now. Like, like that's the level of validity to your argument.
You're
like
talking about encoding. It's just encoding, right?
Well, right. But they weren't encoding it.
Thing.
No,
but it's not. There was
let me tell you a story. Okay.
What he's doing though, real quick, though, what you're doing there, it's not like necessarily encoding. It's that crazy conspiracy theory dude in the room, and he's got all the shit up, and he's got the red.
No, I'm not. I don't do that coded kind of stuff. I don't do that.
Let me read to you like. So
that's flow state, not me. I do the simple. I'm telling even Rage can do that.
Yeah, Rage. This is exactly. This is always sunny right here.
The 49th letter of the book of Moses.
In Hebrew, not in English. I just got to clarify for you.
I'm reading from the Institute for Advanced Study. Who wrote the Torah? Who wrote the Torah in light of more than 200 years of scholarship and the ongoing disputes?
Stop doing that and go to the Bible itself.
The answer to this question still is we don't know. And you tell me, I have a bit of skepticism when it comes to history. I've laid that out clearly, right? But at the same time, you're telling me no, completely ignore all scholarship, all history scholarship, completely ignore archaeology, completely ignore the scholarship that the Jews.
Explain.
You're saying,
Rage, listen, Rage, listen. Yes, fuck? Rage, zip it and listen for a minute, okay? Let me give you an analogy that you might understand.
Dude, I'm all ears.
Okay, my brother, okay? You go out and commit a crime, okay? You do. You're guilty, okay? Imagine a crime that you're going to go commit, okay?
Rape. He's a racist.
Right? Rage rape somebody, okay? And all the scholars come out and go, no, he didn't. We're specialists. We checked all the DNA. We've done all of the archaeological, we looked at all the footage and everything. But in the end, there's a videotape of you doing it, Rage. You're guilty. That's the way. That's what I'm talking about. There's evidence out there where you can go, oh, I don't need to listen to this BS anymore. I don't care how smart these guys think they are. There is that out there. Follow me?
Rage, I don't care what kind of weed you got. The only way you're going to get into a brain state to believe this shit is if you have a skiing accident. That's it. True. Very, very true.
Like, wait, what? Stephanie Helms says it perfectly. Like, wait, what? What the fuck did you just say, P-Town?
I was just trying to come up with an analogy that you would listen to.
Wow.
But you follow my logic here?
No,
at least?
so I would be like,
no, your logic. Fuck no, I don't. Fuck no.
You would I would
don't listen to these Satanists, Rage. You know what I'm talking about.
I would want people not to trust the videotape of me raping the girl. Like, I don't understand what you were saying. I don't get it. No.
How did I zone out on that analogy? I mean,
you missed it, Reba.
I did. I totally zoned out on it.
It was a dumb analogy.
It was.
I really told the most extreme analogy I could think of, just so you wouldn't zonate.
Did he rape her in the butt or him? Was it a him? Is it him?
I don't know. We'll have to check the video footage.
God damn it, Rage!
I don't know. Me and my
stop raping people.
Shit, you know?
Like, I'm struggling. I'm trying to get high enough for this shit to make sense.
That's a good plan. Let me know how that goes. Trying. Go pet your dog.
I mean, it sort of sounds like you're just trying to mock it and not hear what's being said.
Thank you, Flow State. Hopefully that was directed towards a puff a dog.
Trying to get high, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm sorry. I don't know how. I'm just trying to relay a message the best I can. Like, I'm sorry I offend Mark and Pat sometimes. I don't mean to. I like both the guys a lot. And I'm not perfect, but sometimes I have. I'm trying a new path sometimes with guys like Mark right now. And I don't mean to be mean to him specifically, but that's why I'm making up crazy analogies like you and committing that particular type of crime, where everyone can say, oh, we could reverse it, right? All of the specialists, all the cops, right? All the detectives, the DNA evidence, everything points where you did do that to that person, Rage.
Cops are liars.
But there's a video or multiple videos out there, maybe thousands of them, all showing that you weren't there for that. That is exonerating evidence, I think, or something. That's the type of evidence that I believe is in the Bible. If you do your work.
Exonerating evidence that Moses was somehow able to write a Torah that took hundreds of years.
No, not hundreds of years.
It includes his death. The Torah talks about Moses' death.
Yeah, I mean, the Torah clearly says that Moses doesn't write parts of it, at least.
You know, that's a good point. I'll have to look into that. So, but regardless of that, regardless of who actually wrote it, there's a way to see that it was written by someone or something outside of our time.
Like, how do you think a human being up to this point? Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, because I think science at some point, like, I think, like, there's been I've been reading about science right now, like, they've actually reversed the aging of mice. They've been able to speed up aging and reverse it in mice. You know, so at some point, humans might be able to live for fucking ever, or for as long as we want. But up to this point in this reality right now, what tells you that it's possible that somebody lived to 200, let alone 300, 400?
Well, you're changing the subject right now. What I'm trying to tell you is that the Bible was written. Shut up for a second, Ray.
You said that Moses is 200 years old.
All right. I'll zip it. When you're ready, I'll talk.
Go for it.
Okay. First of all, we're not talking about how I can talk about my argument for how old people lived, according to the Bible, but we're talking about how I believe that what God wrote is an integrated message system. It's not about Moses wrote it. It's not about someone else. You can prove that God made that book, dude. You can prove it objectively if you have ears and eyes.
I mean,
and you.
Torah says that Moses died at 120. He was 120 years old when he died.
You know, that was a good guess I had, huh? That was not bad for being
You're just off by 8 years.
So,
no, I said almost 200. That was a good guess, considering that sounds crazy to us people these days. I don't know. So, Rach, for something happened, according to the Bible, where people, after the flood, they started to not live as long. And I think
the flood never happened.
It's because of chemtrails.
No.
I think
anyway, according to the Bible, that's what happens.
What about reality?
Well, that's just a book with a story.
I mean, I think everybody's making the mistake of treating the Bible too literally. It's an occulted spiritual book. So,
but the thing is, but it constantly, it like literally says something and contradicts itself or makes itself look like a fucking idiot, right? Like he said, people are living supposedly 600-700 years old before the flood, right? The flood happens because there's too much corruption and sin in the world, right? The flood is supposedly washes all this sin, all this corruption away. After this, in the new pure world, people don't live even a fraction of that time. Makes no fucking sense.
Literally, when you are,
you think God gives a crap what you
when
think?
You're being literal about a mystical book, then yeah, of course it makes no sense, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I'm not Christian, but I think that there's a right way to approach these sort of topics, this esoteric stuff, and there's a wrong way, and being a literalist about it is the wrong way. You're going to miss the whole point.
No, I'm saying that's not even literal. What I'm saying is just the concept makes no fucking sense. They needed to cleanse the planet, right? Get rid of the corruption, this sin, right? Gets rid of it, and now people live a fraction of that time. But somehow it made the world better. It's a constant contradiction. It's like, hey, I'm going to say something and then immediately contradict. That's the progression of the Bible.
The only contradiction is your brain, Puff.
Well,
no, there's no contradiction in the Bible.
To kill the Nephilim, but he failed in doing that because the Nephilim pop up later on.
That's true. I can't figure that one out yet. You
it's
finally said something smart, Lord. I appreciate it.
It's a mystery why the Bible constantly contradicts itself.
It doesn't contradict itself. There's apparent contradiction.
Yes, it does.
Telling you to go read your Bible, Puff, but you don't because you want to go smoke weed with your dog.
Which edition? Which edition? Though there's like 15 different editions of the Bible, if not more.
It's probably it's not reading your Bible.
Which one? Though?
Sorry, Puff. What did you say, Puff?
So you're saying Puff is going to hell because he doesn't read his Bible? I agree.
It has nothing to do with reading your Bible. When you're going to hell, your salvation is you just have to confess Jesus is your Lord and He died for your sins.
Why
you have salvation.
Jesus didn't exist.
Is being trapped in a room with the raping atheist for all of time.
I'm in hell a lot.
But is he the raping atheist or the raging atheist? Because these are two very different things.
I'm sorry, but the when they say the proof of God that God wrote the Bible is in the Bible, right? That's the same validity to me as the proof that Lemony Snicket is a real person. He really existed. Is that he narrated the entire book third person.
Who's Lemony Snicket?
Lemony Snicket's in a series of unfortunate events.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch it.
Oh, the book first, but anyway, yeah, he narrated the whole story. He had to have existed, but it was from the third person, and it was his name's in the title. He had to exist.
Yeah, I think it's going to be impossible for me to look up your code, like the 49th letter of the Book of Moses. Like, I don't even think like my computer's going to.
No, it's so it.
Look up gematria. GMATRIA.
Did he run away?
Huh? Oh yeah, I didn't notice he left.
His internet contradicted itself.
Oh, it's so weird that people think some of the shit that they think, but I'm probably sure that some of the shit that I think blow people away too.
Gematria is interesting because there's too many correlations. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but it seems very unlikely that it's coincidence. But who knows?
Like P-Town's a weird dude because he, like his arguments. So tonight we had the 49th letter of the Book of Moses, part 1, and then the 49th letter of the second Book of Moses, and blah 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 blah. I'll let you right back in, P-Town. He's back there.
I'm just gonna finish talking about you first. Is that?
yeah, I'm gonna finish talking shit. The first time he was in, it was all like demons exist because the lights were flickering and the doorbell, right? Like it's always something like, I don't know, cray with P-Town. I dig it. So
wait, hold on a second. I am not Crazy Man.
That's okay.
What did you guys? What did Lord Red Fang say about me behind my back? I don't know why. I figured it was the devil that kicked me out, because you actually asked about details about my evidence, and I got excited, and then everything lights went out.
You don't have any evidence. You can't prove Jesus existed. You can't prove Moses existed.
You just want to deny all these people. You want to deny the most famous person in the history of the world never existed.
Yes, I'm going to deny the most famous person because it's just a character from a story.
Yeah, and if the devil kicked you out, like, that wouldn't be the thing, because supposedly the devil's whole mission is to get people to not believe in God, right? So like his best weapon would be to keep you in this room, because by the minute,
you're so funny, Puff.
By the minute, people are becoming non-believers.
I mean, it is it fits with the whole like lights flickering, doorbell shit, demons, so the devil's kicking you out of StreamYard now.
No, I was joking. But
no, he ran across. Kevin Spacey ran through the room and kicked you straight the fuck out.
I didn't actually want Puff to leave. I'm sorry, I was being mean to him, Rage.
He's durable.
He can smoke weed all he wants. I don't care.
I'm sure he's either having.
We're all sinners, and Christ came for us sinners, not the saints. So
he came.
No, he didn't, because he failed at that. Because there's still sin
for you, Lord Red Fang.
Do you think like weed is like the devil's grass, or what? Like, what's your issue with weed?
I don't have an issue with weed. I'm just picking on him.
Like, Christians have an issue with weed, though. Like, the Brett Keane video I didn't review. I decided not to review. I decided to go nice tonight. It was basically him.
Well, Brett Keane will bring us atheists together. Brett Keane's on he's on a mission of getting views.
He has an issue with me smoking weed. It's like, like, don't mention my alcoholism. It's the weed, right? Like that's my issue. Is I don't know. It's kind of weird. It seems like Christians, for some reason, thinks like, I don't know, weed is bad. What do you think?
Well, so from the Bible teaches us about like idolatry. So if you're able to smoke weed, and like when you go through a rough time, or if you're dealing with some crap, if you go to God before you go to weed, in theory you're all right. But that's the challenging thing is, I'm guilty of this too. I quit smoking, chewing, and then I went to vaping. I quit vaping a year ago about now. I still drink, and
bad shit, didn't you?
But like the whole point is, like, instead of going to God with stuff, you're going to something else, and that's where the issue lies. I mean, when it comes to, Jesus just provided wine at the wedding. Like, that was the first miracle.
How do you go? Like, how do you go?
So it's not the wine itself that's bad.
Well, that's because God is the ultimate party companion. I mean, who has not been on the bathroom floor of a house and just said to themselves, God, if I can just make it through the next 3 hours,
Puff, you finally said something with some brains.
But then I do more of those drugs. Then you do more of those drugs.
You got to come to Jesus on your knees, baby. You got to wake up the next morning, come on your knees, and say, Jesus, I won't do that again. Come into my life.
Oh, no.
Have you done that yet?
I do it in moderation, bro.
Oh, that's too bad. Go read your Bible. Rage.
Which one, though?
Little weed head.
So I recommend the the King James version, just so you and I can be brothers and we can talk about scripture together. But you want to really ultimately
But what if I'm an NIV flavor kind of?
How about you just zip it for a second? But after you actually, really get into it, go into the Hebrew and the Greek, and I'll show you the good stuff. I'll show you the websites where you can get access to the in-depth stuff. NIV, it's risky. NIV is risky. It's not bad, but there's just a few risky parts that you need to be aware of.
Wait till you get to the secret teachings of all ages.
Are those the same websites that want to sell me like buckets of like prepper food?
No, I don't know.
No, you're going to some other places.
You should probably have some food.
They just seem to have a weird crossover. I'm just saying.
It just seems prudent.
No, I get the stigma of being a Christian. Yeah. No, but I do. If you're actually asking me seriously, and the King James version, don't be hesitant to go to other ones, but make sure that you hold that one supreme. Mainly, so you and I, when we talk one day, we can talk about Scripture together because. We can reference stuff. You want to be able to memorize some Scripture.
I love Scripture. You know what Scripture I really like? Numbers.
You do? Which one?
I do. I love Numbers. I love the part. I love the part where it tells about taking your wife to the temple, to the priest. You like that part where her thigh?
I don't know where what?
Where
the bitter water.
It was the bitter water and her thigh falls out. Where God's like, abortion is cool, dog, as long as you don't think it's your baby.
The bitter water.
That's what he said, though. God was like, if you don't think it's your baby, dog, it's cool, homie.
That is true.
You know, I wonder why you love that Scripture so much. But you know what? One day I want to pray tonight. God's okay with abortion. Father, and you look back on this with the same line. I'm going to pray tonight that you become a father, and you don't look at it the same way. Are you a father yet, Puff?
No.
I got 4 kids, so
I'm going to pray that you
will
will
not
be.
talk about people's kids.
I have one that I know.
Future kids that I want to pray for. Problem for you, Lord?
No, my kids are good. They don't need a weirdo like you praying for them.
Anyway, Puff, I haven't looked into that entirely. I think there's another passage in Ezekiel when it comes to abortion. It alludes to possibly being about abortion. I haven't really done my research yet, but I'll have to look up the one in Numbers. I don't know everything. I don't know the specifics there.
So you mentioned idolatry a little bit ago. Why would Jesus not be an idol?
You know, I've been running into this a lot with atheists, and it just shines a light.
Have you?
Yeah, it's insane. Talking about
the question.
I don't know why people. No, it's the sin, and it's the sin thing, man. With atheists, they want to convince me that the devil actually wrote the Bible. They want to convince me that the snake actually told the truth in the garden. It's all a bunch of BS.
Well, how did
Jesus is Lord? There's no idolatry there.
How did the serpent not tell the truth? It doesn't say snake; it says serpent.
Sure, whatever.
Right? I mean, the literal.
But why? Why do you want to go down this unsupported crap when you don't even believe in the Bible anyway? The fact that you guys want to go down this, even though you don't believe in the book anyway, it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me. It's because you deal with sin in your life, Rage. That's why you really want to go down this road.
But I mean,
the sin did lie.
He's just retelling it literally. The snake literally handed over knowledge, and that God was trying to hide. Now you can interpret into things. You know, maybe God was doing it for a good reason, but that is not covered in the story. The story just says God was keeping a secret. The serpent handed over to
I'm going to tackle it head on, and there's going to be no filters because I got to go get another drink. But no, I want to reiterate how I'm fascinated with how atheists are fascinated with the devil possibly being the good guy. It's ridiculous if you take a step back and look at it, Rage, and you know that, but you still want to present that argument. And that's because you're corrupt, Rage, and you know it. To answer your question, though,
I'm corrupt because I think that Satan.
You'll have to do your own thing there.
What does Satan do in the Bible that's evil?
Is the serpent and Satan the same thing?
How come I always get tossed into this all the time? The snake comes up. The serpent comes up, starts to tell half lies. And why do you guys care anyway? You guys don't believe in any of it. Comes in and starts telling half lies to Eve to trick her, to deceive her, and to eat of the fruit. And you want to say that he was actually the one that told the truth? He didn't deceive her. He told her the truth. No, he told the truth. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. It's the most ridiculous thing.
No, it's not.
I don't know what to do besides laugh. He said, God tells Adam, not Eve, by the way. God tells Adam.
Yeah, it's because Eve wasn't born.
You can eat of any of the Adam yet. Right. Well, yeah, in theory, we don't know for sure.
Lord, get the story right, bro.
No, it doesn't specify, but you can assume that yes, Eve was not created yet. It doesn't say that, but you can. The way that I approach Scripture, yes, you're correct. So God tells Adam, you can eat of any fruit in the garden except for this one. And then the serpent comes to Eve and says,